Hello and welcome to Beauty and the Beat. I am your host, Betsy Zane, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Sophia Brad and Amanda Van Annen. At Beauty and the Beat, we aim to inspire you by talking honestly and openly from matters of the heart to makeup or breakups, health and wealth, nutrition or maybe your ambitions, fashion or fashion faux pas. So come, sit back and relax and join us as we delve deep. Hi, and welcome to our 5th episode of Beauty and the Beat. Today we are going to talk to you about love and marriage and discuss whether marriage is a dying institution. Marriage is something that is ingrained in most of us from childhood and is a legal and formal union between two consenting adults as life partners in a personal and loving relationship as a foundation of adult life. We find the perfect partner and swear our allegiance till death do us part, and seemingly live a life of pure harmony. So why are we finding that a high percentage of marriages end in divorce, with more than 1 out of 4 marriages failing within the first 5 years? It seems the Institute of Marriage may be in crisis, as some believe the consumer or throwaway culture has contributed to the breakdown of marriage, and that nowadays people are encouraged to believe that there will always be something bigger and better around the corner. I am your host, Betsy Zane, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-hosts, Amanda Annen and Sophia Brad. Welcome back, and we are here to discuss and deliberate the age-old question, is marriage a dying institution? Even though divorce rates have risen, most of us still do believe in love in marriage. But are we just looking to society and that need to seek approval and validation? Would it be safe to say that we have lost our way with the notion that love and marriage are sustainable and what it really means to us? So ladies, over to you. What do you think about marriage? Is it a dying institution?
Well, Betsy, thank you for that great introduction about marriage. Out of the three of us here, Betsy's actually the only one that's been married, but we all have friends that have been married. So I guess I can contribute my little 2 cents into this and talk about it. Well, personally, when I think about marriage and a dying institution, I think, we have to go back to thinking, what is marriage in the first place? Why do people get married? You kind of meet the love of your life. You go to a church, a mosque, or a Buddhist temple, or whatever it is, and you form a union, and that union is supposed to carry you through the rest of your life. Now, in 2020, a lot of people are getting divorced, which is one of the reasons why Betsy's asking this question is this thing dying? I mean, I think personally, for me, love is a human need that's defined by your emotional well-being. Now, I also feel like in today's world, everyone is stressed. Everyone is very busy. They hardly have any time for themselves. And, people are putting marriage on the back burner because they're like obsessed with things like making money, making sure they have enough money when they're old. Some people actually feel like marriage is kind of a burden because they feel like if I get married, I have to take care of my wife, my child. I mean, that's for men, even though us women do work these days. But people feel like it's a burden. They want to be free. They want to be single. Part of it is we are living longer. Women in their 40s are looking like 20. Men in their 50s are looking like 30. We are living longer. Our lifespan once upon a time was 40 years old. Then it was like about 60 years old. So you'd meet someone in your 20s and you only had 30 years to go and you'll probably be dead. Now, most people are getting married 3 times. They have the starter wife, the middle-aged wife, and the wife they need when they're about to die because they need someone to take care of them. Just don't be that wife. Anyway, Sophia, what do you think?
Well, just like you said, only Betsy has that experience under her belt and can speak from her own experience. I've never been married. I've only had one serious relationship in my life. I do not think that marriage is like a dying institution, but I think it's something that people think about a little bit deeper these days. They don't seem to rush into it. In past, it was like a religious celebration to get married, and it meant an awful lot of security for the woman. And even all the way until like 1950s, I think marriage was something that all women strived for. Now with equality and women being in higher positions, I think we no longer kind of need to get married for the security thing, because women can really take care of themselves financially. They're quite independent in many different areas. So marriage is shifting into like a different institution, in my opinion. I think marriage is like a union of two people that are in love, a modern marriage anyway. But still, people are quite hesitant doing that, because obviously there's many reasons why people are hesitant to do that, because I think a lot of people these days are quite scared of commitment. Like you touched on, there's so many different opportunities to meet people these days. People kind of get a little bit hesitant about settling down. But I feel like if you meet someone that you truly love and you want to declare your love to each other, I think marriage is a lovely way to do that. And I would hope that one day, one day I'll get the chance to marry someone that I truly love and want to spend the rest of my life with. And obviously now at my older age, I'm 35 now, I'll be hoping that if I meet someone and get married, I wouldn't be the start to wife. I would be somewhere in the middle, hopefully all the way down till the end.
I think you've all made some really valid points there, and I totally agree with you, both of you. I think for me, today a lot of people, there are a lot of skeptics out there with young people falling into this bracket, and significantly more likely to think that marriage is an outdated idea. We all have marital dreams, and I think we've all been brainwashed into believing that we'll meet the perfect person, live happily ever after, and envisage a life full of perfect bliss. Having the perfect job we've always wanted, living in the perfectly bought house with 2.4 children. I do believe that we have also fallen into the pitfalls of needing to be married, by a certain age, which you've said, and also that marriage is a status symbol that needs to be upheld. I think it seems that for most people we often think that marriage is a leap of faith, and without giving it a great deal of thought, and about the person that we'll be living with for the rest of our lives. I believe for most couples it's not just enough to form a union or stay together, but to have a relationships that that are meaningful and satisfying. Knowing who you are, what you have to offer, and what you truly want for a relationship are key to finding lasting love.
So when we go back to marriage as a dying institution, I think one of the things we should think about is, why is it dying? Because it is kind of dying, because people are not getting married sometimes till 50s,
Yeah, that's right.
60s even, especially men,
Hmm.
you know. And a lot of people are looking at it. I think people are looking at marriage more now like an opportunistic
Hmm.
partnership. A lot of people, I find that it also depends on income strata. I find like when it comes down to middle and, just like working class people, a lot of people get married because, they fall in love, they want to be happy, and they still have this notion. But a lot of people from middle class, like upper middle class upwards, a lot of them are very strategic in their marriages these days. Let me give you examples. Older men will marry a young woman. That has been time immemorial, but they'll marry, these days, they're looking for a young model to make all their older friends feel jealous. Strategic. He's got the money. She needs to have a living. He knows she doesn't really like him. She knows he knows, but she's there for the money and she's there for the security.
And
Second
she's a
case,
trophy wife.
exactly. But trophy wives normally come in all forms. It doesn't matter the age, really, because a trophy wife can be Amal Clooney, who got married in her 30s. You know what I
Yes.
mean? A
Yeah.
trophy wife can be Betsy, who's gorgeous, who's a model, who's like an international model. A trophy wife can be Sophia Brad. It can be
Hmm.
anybody. We are all beautiful. But what I'm trying to get out of here is the psychological part of it,
Yeah.
where, like Sophia, you would talk about how people don't love themselves.
Hmm.
And sometimes when you don't love yourself, you're looking for things that complement, that can fulfill that need, not complement, actually, fulfill that need.
In other
And
ways,
so,
yeah. Mhm.
yeah, so you find these very strategic, like you'll find two famous actors will just get together because it's good for their publicity. And after 2 years, when they've had children, then they split up because, they don't really love each other. They met on set, they had sex, they thought it was great. Oh, everybody's talking about them. let's get married. How many times has Tamara Eccleston or Petra and those girls been married, or had boyfriends, rich daddy's girls who thought, I'm looking for love. I found the perfect guy. I want to marry him because I want to create that dream. I've got all this money in the world. And they marry this guy and he turns out to be scum artist, or whatever. So I feel like a lot of people are moving strategically to find their partners because they're trying to match a mirror for their life that they want the outside to see rather than looking for love.
Yeah.
Which is like
Instagram marriage.
Yes. And it's funny you should say, because when you talk about, marriage being public, I think for me, social media also has an effect on marriage. I think social media has contributed to people, readily flaunting their weddings and honeymoons on social media platforms. And it has brought the idea of having the best, the biggest, and the most elaborate weddings, be it a celebrity or not, and it has now become about naming the design of your shoes, your dress, how many is in your bridal partner, or even, who has captured the best pictures for the world to see. It has become lost to the idea, and it's more public, and weddings are more of like you say, a status symbol that you receive for doing it well, for example.
I do feel like a lot of times, like marriage almost kind of feels like a transactional relationship. Like you were saying, Amanda, a man brings his status, his money, his position, his ability to provide for the family. Woman brings her youth, her beauty, her ability to give him children, to create a home and things like this.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have couples that, a woman's a model and the guy's a photographer. He takes pictures of her. She's got a big following, so he can benefit out of that, or maybe move into like a different industry with her. Then they come together on these terms, like, I'll do this for you, you'll do that for me. Then it becomes a relationship. Then they go and bounce off each other's platforms, make it like really like interesting, especially when, when they run out of topics to talk about themselves on Instagram, then they do a joint account or like something like that. And it's just pushing them to another place where they can get more followers from like different backgrounds interested in their private life and things like that. So I feel like a lot of times relationships are based on like a transaction. I give you this, you give me this, and then together we do this and that. And I feel like it's almost becoming like a business sometimes when people get together and then they got in the marriage. I feel like, obviously the rise of like prenuptial agreements and things like that, it makes it feel like it's a transaction. What are your thoughts, ladies?
Yeah, it's very true. And I think, it has become, a culture of who can outdo who, or what we refer to as a consumer culture. It's very spot on, ladies.
Yeah, but, part of it is like when Sophia, you talk about people like photographer and model, like it's transactional. I totally agree with you. But, part of what you said actually is also what a marriage should be about. Because I think the best marriages also work when you can partner up as a couple.
Yes.
And
you have
raise
common
yourself
interests.
Yeah, you raise yourself higher. So, he could be a businessman and you're helping him with his books and you're helping grow the business at home whilst he's going out to get clients. That's what relationships are about, where you can grow each other. I guess a lot of things today, people are also using it as a marketing tool.
Yes.
So, you see all these couples now where the guy's all fit, the girl's hanging on him, they Photoshop the picture. So they're basically selling you
a dream. Yes.
So just like magazines saying like, oh, our relationship is perfect, even though it's not. It's all pictures. They're probably shooting it.
Down to society again, like the pressure of like being here and there and everywhere and settling down by a certain age. We buy into it because it's been drilled into us for so long. And I feel like it's drilled into girls more often because to be able to land a man with like status or someone that's going to take care of you was the main goal for women for centuries.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're very right. It's been drilled into a lot of women that if you don't have your perfect partner, say like by 30, 28 probably, or you don't marry a guy with certain status, you are nobody. And unfortunately, social media is perpetuating that. But what is happening on social media is a lot of people are actually going out and pretending So they're like, you know
Mhm.
what? My man might not be the best and I may not be the best and we may not live in this glamorous house, but guess what? Let's just pretend like we do. Let's fake
Yes.
it to make it. And so people are doing that. So their marriages still have problems behind the telephone screen,
Mhm. Yes,
but
that's right.
to
It's
the
like living a
public,
lie. Yes, living
yeah,
behind
to
the
the
lens.
public,
Hmm.
they think everything is okay. And so, like, going back to the is marriage a dying institution? I think part of it also is because of our throwaway culture. Like I think Betsy said or something.
Yes,
We
I did.
throw
Yes.
everything away.
Hmm.
Everything is like, yeah, I use this dress, I do this, everything. And life is moving so fast.
Hmm.
And what I noticed, a lot of men are under pressure. So what's going on now is a man meets a girl, he falls in love. He wants to be with her in his heart, but he'll go to the girl, I'm not sure, because there's this social pressure he's afraid of, either introducing her to his friends or what are they going to say because she's not a supermodel or she's not an Instagram famous. Like he's basically trying to aspire. So unless he gets someone that is in his aspirational diaspora,
Hmm.
he's like, oh, and it's funny because he's going against what he wants,
Yes. Yeah.
but he's trying to, and I think people have always done that. Don't get me wrong. People have always had arranged marriages, marriages because of convenience, marriages for
Hmm.
money, marriages because of family. But now it's accentuated by Instagram because
Yeah.
they're like, oh, you know what? Guess what? If I marry her, it's going to make us look good. I mean, I know so many supermodels that married guys that were not as rich as they were, playboys. They knew those guys were playboys, but they got to that age, like Sophia said, where I want to get married. So they marry this guy. He's like maybe a basketball player or something, not famous, not as rich as they are. And they'll marry the guy because it looks good. He's a
Hmm.
basketball player. She's a supermodel. They get married. A lot of those supermodels are divorced now because
Mm.
those Playboy guys are still Playboys, even though
Yes.
they're married to the supermodel,
Yes.
because they didn't marry the love of their life.
That's right. And Amanda, you said something very interesting before, and I'm going back to the part where you said, it's difficult nowadays to maintain discipline, and trust in your decision making because there's so many external, influences. And I believe that people should just trust in their decision making when it comes to choosing their partners. Even though when they look at social media, for example, somebody else may appear more attractive or more together, but it does come to like, the perception and what people put out there make us believe what is who they are and what they're all about.
So one thing a conclusion we can have on this is that part of the reason that the institution of marriage is dying is just because of all these new things that people they want to achieve. And
That's right.
now it's like, even if you get married to someone and you're under social pressure, that is accentuated because, oh my God, on Instagram, what are they going to say? What are they going to say on Facebook? It's just not, the answer I have for people here is marry the love of your life, marry the person you love. It always works out because when you get to your 60s, 70s, 80s, you are going to realize that everything you thought that mattered really does not matter.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. She really touched on the topic how it's a throwaway culture.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it makes me remember the story like about my grandparents. So when they met, they were young, they were in their early 20s. This was like maybe the early 60s, yeah. And when they got married, families put together some money so that they can buy furniture and then like just furnish all their house and get all appliances they need. And back in the days, they were making these things out of really sturdy materials like steel, wood, glass, everything that was meant to last you for a long time. So when they moved in, they would have the furniture and everything to last the whole marriage. If something got broken, my granddad was a very handy man, so he would fix it, or they would call, if it was like an appliance that they couldn't fix, they would call somebody that, knew how to fix it. So back in those days, when things broke, people worked on it. Now, because we're in a consumer slash throwaway culture, people were like, okay, well, it's broken, it's not working, so I'm just going to get a new one. I'm going to get an upgrade. And they just move from one thing to another, and they just constantly want the newest, the bestest thing. They want, exactly like you were touching on the subject, they want people on Instagram and social media to be like, oh, she's got like the newest version of this and that. Oh my God, like PS5, for example, right now. Yeah. Oh, my woman got me a PS5, or I've got the new iPhone and this and that. So such a consumer world, people showing off with the newest technology. It's such a sad time that we're living because people no longer want to work on things. I feel people don't feel like they should be fixing stuff. They just give up. They give up at the first inconvenience. And I'm not sure if this is linked to marriage being a dying institution, but I feel like people just cannot commit to one person or cannot imagine having that one person by their side who they can grow with, who they can have a balanced relationship. Like, I'm good at this, you're good at that, we're going to make it work together. I'm going to help you with the things that you're not so good at, and you're going to help me with the things that I'm not so good at. There will be arguments, there will be things that might not be comfortable, but people should want to learn from that person in order to grow. Yeah. And I feel like unless you're spiritually in tune and like understand the spirituality and understand how relationships work or should work, or like in order for you to grow and learn, then people just throw it away because they don't really care. All they care about is whether they have the newest upgrade.
Sophia, you really made, really interesting points. And what I think for me as well, when we speak about the olden days, was that many of us, our family and friends, really had a big impact in our relationships and our marriages. And it's true to say that, even if, there was a breakdown somewhere, you would find that family would get involved, friends would get involved. Your friends and family played a big role in being present in your relationships, even when it came to children and, being celebrating events. Like, it was a very big part of, you had a community keeping the whole institution together because, you all had shared common ground that, you find a partner, you come together and you live happily, so-called ever after. But I think, like you said, with today's throwaway society, it means that we are so encouraged by like what we see on the different platforms and what people will, encourage you, because we have not even just people, but we have things like apps, dating apps that encourage you to then go and seek for other relationships outside, because it's, well, if it doesn't work, there's a way to fix it. It's available everywhere.
Yeah. People no longer have to hide and like seek partners that they can cheat with. It's right there in front of them on their phone.
Exactly. Easy access wherever you look, from whether it be on Instagram, seeing all the beautiful women posing nakedly or whatever. It's just out there for us, for the taking.
People don't care anymore about infidelity as much as they did before. It's like it's like a standard thing now. Oh, so what? I cheated. Mm-hmm. It makes my blood boil because, of course, not everything's going to be rosy, but people don't want to work on things. That's what makes me upset.
Mm-hmm. That's very true.
I want to pick up on 2 points. Mm-hmm. One that Sophia said, which was about the throwaway culture, and what Betsy was talking about, which was family. First, I'm going to talk about the family thing. Mm-hmm. That was really right. I liked the fact that, that is actually true. Families kept the marriage institution together. Now, there was a good and bad of that, because as we know, there were arranged marriages, there were younger marriages, there were girls that got married too early, there were people that were married in loveless marriages. There's a reason I'm talking about all this, is because though families kept the institution together, there was also, like, everything has a double-edged sword.
Correct.
However,
I agree.
However, what I also want to mention is, the reason I had to mention that is I want to talk about the importance of culture.
That's true.
What I'm realizing is what's happening in the whole world is a breakdown in culture and an exportation of American culture to the whole wide world. American culture is very individualistic. It's you're yourself, you do what you want, you're free, if you're a human being, free spirit, it's a great concept. But when we look at how society is maintained or evolved, we need culture. In the modern democratic culture, like, anyone can do anything if they like it. There's kind of no individual checks and balances.
No boundaries.
No boundaries, because you're a free individual. But when you look at tradition, a lot of traditional cultures, you can see why society has been prolonged for so long. Even though we don't agree with some of it today, because you could be like, no, that's not right. You can see that it kept these things because people wondered, why were they so strict about this? Or why was this? But that's what kept us together. And that's what kept
Yes.
the institution of marriage alive, And then going to the throwaway culture, it's funny when you talk about that, because I think in terms of spirituality, because isn't it funny how, you talk about furniture and about how people didn't throw away furniture, then they fixed it. But think about this. Before our throwaway culture of as individuals came IKEA. So you see, we our inner kind of reflects on the outside, because IKEA is a throwaway culture. It's all made of cheap wood. It breaks down after a while. It looks lovely, but most people wouldn't even repair it. They'll just be like, you know what? My IKEA bed's broken.
We're going to buy another.
Let's
Material.
buy another.
We're going to buy another.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Everything
Yes.
became prefab. And that prefab has also come into our life. Because
Yeah.
if you look at things like IKEA and stuff, I mean, they have great stuff and they've got better. But, they've got better. And even I buy IKEA. I mean, but what I'm saying is that, it's that thing where it all looks shiny on the outside
Mm-hmm.
and it's empty on the inside.
Yes. Well,
And that's exactly what's going on
But this is what I'm saying. Things are not made from materials that are meant to last. So everything we put into relationships is half-arsed, half-hearted. It's not the real thing. We don't get into that union with things that we've already worked on, with things like with the right intentions almost, We don't have a right intentions anymore. It's not to procreate. It's not to create a secure home anymore. It is just, let's just have this fancy wedding and like take some pictures and then live together for a year or two and then whatever, I don't care. Like we don't go into it with right intentions, and that is the cheap material that goes into IKEA flat pack furniture and not like the expensive Italian furniture handmade.
Exactly. But isn't it funny how that's become our life today? Because on Instagram, everyone's just generating content. They call it content generation. And it's not necessarily, to be really honest, I don't even look at Instagram much. I just post things for the podcast, for my own personal things. I use Instagram as a marketing tool because it takes too much time in my day. But going back to other reasons why marriage is a failing institution, we've talked about compatibility, but I think a big one, which I think we need to hit the nail on the head on this bitch, is financial compatibility. That has become a big thing where people are either marrying because they need the guy to take care of them. It's always happened, but now even men are doing it. I've seen men that really attracted to a particular girl, but they will marry her because they want to marry that rich girl who's inherited daddy's money. And because she's inherited daddy's money, it's going to help them up their status. And another thing we have to realize is that after the Second World War, people were still getting married. There was that thing, you wanted to start a family, build a new life together, everything. Now, we're about, 60 years after the Second World War, whatever, 70, 80 years, or whatever. Yeah. What has happened is you've got third generation people that have built wealth from the grandfather to the father to the. So now in the world, there's also more than ever a large amount of young people with a lot of money from parents, not necessarily their money. They're more than they used to be when I was growing up, because, now those people have had their children. So you find these young 25-year-olds, there's even more of them, and what I mean by that is not like they necessarily have millions and millions, but they've never grown up with lack.
Yes.
They've never seen war. They've never seen what it's like. Yeah, they've never seen what it's like to have nothing. They've never seen what it's like to just have someone to hold you when there's nothing around you. They've grown up in this spoilt environment where they've had everything. And some of their parents happen to have worked hard, or their grandparents, and they just don't appreciate anybody.
Don't have any values.
There's no value, yes, yeah. Or even a need for understanding, of how anything really works, because it's just there at their fingertips.
Yeah, what I keep thinking is about, there was an episode of the Kardashians, and one of the younger girls got a Ferrari for her birthday, and she wasn't even excited about it, because there is nothing that excites you when you can have everything. So I feel like that is the saddest part of a lifestyle where you can afford everything and you got so much money that everybody is sorted for the rest of your life. It basically takes away your ability, unless you're spiritual and unless you can be really happy and joyful from small little things. no present, no materialistical thing could bring you that pure joy
That's
that
right.
would bring you under different circumstances.
Oh, completely.
Sophia, you made an important point because you said there is nothing that excites you when
Hmm.
you can have everything.
Yeah.
The man that goes on Instagram feels like he can have every woman on there, even though he can't. In his head somewhere, he thinks, oh, yeah, I can have anybody I want. So he looks at his girlfriend sitting next to him and he's like, I'm going to text this girl and that girl, secretly slide into their DMs
Hmm.
because he feels, why should I be with you when I can just DM random girls and I can have anything I want?
Hmm.
And that's the exact point. That's what's
Yes.
happening in relationships.
And also, I think a lot of people are living out of ego, and not really looking at because at the end of this, when we really do look to this, it's about, ourselves, and how we feel about ourselves, with them, we project into our life and how we live. And I think that also takes me into like having to, understanding your love language and what defines us and what we look for in somebody, because I think it's a very important topic to understand, that what your love language can help you understand and determine who you find and how you recognize and understand somebody who you can connect with.
Mm-hmm.
Compatibility is everything. And when you know your love language, which is, there's a book called, I think it's the 6 or is it 5 love languages?
Languages, yes.
It's fine.
And it talks about how people, when they have a different language of love,
Hmm.
it's better when the other person knows what the language is. So the
Mm-hmm.
other person can pander to that, if someone needs more time, maybe someone likes more touching and kissing and the other partner doesn't like it. It doesn't mean they're rejecting you. It's just that maybe they communicate differently. So, one of the things that keeps marriages alive is communication. And whilst we're talking about love languages and communication, the reason I think a lot of relationships don't work out now is because, apart from the fact that there's a lack of communication, a lot of times people are not even wanting to communicate on a deeper level with other
Hmm.
people. They're keeping it also superficial because they don't really want to go to that core place where it hurts, where,
Yes.
someone really sees you for who you are. A lot of people don't want to go there. They keep that, hidden deep within. And that place is going to bring out everything. And it's going to be the most beautiful thing that's actually going to get them
Yeah.
deeper into their
Yeah.
relationship, but they're so scared of themselves and they're so scared to face it.
Yeah.
So even when they know their love language, I feel like they don't express it fully.
And I think, like you said, Amanda, I totally agree. And I think love is, a universal language. And I think we need to define what love means to us.
Mm-hmm.
People feel and express love differently, perhaps going back to basics and truly knowing and discovering what qualities you look for in a person, understanding your love language. I think for me, love is an intense feeling of deep affection, but it is also an enacted emotion. And what I mean by that is love is to feel and also to act lovingly. And I believe that real love is not one dimensional and only about the feelings of the other. It's also when a person believes in another and shows it without obligation, but with a genuine want to do so. So now that we know our 5 love languages are words of affirmation, receiving gifts, physical touch, quality time, and acts of service. So I'm going to put the question to you both. What would you say? What's your love language?
Well, mine is acts of service, and that's the main one, but I'm quite balanced with the rest of them, except for receiving gifts. I scored the least on that one because I've always thought that I'm like not oriented for gifts. I prefer to someone to help me with things, or like physical touch is the second highest score for me. Then I have equal amount scores on quality time and words of affirmation. But acts of service I can explain from my past. My grandmother, when she brought me up, she was always doing things for me, like as if it was cooking for me, buying me clothes, or like dressing me, like proper taking care of someone. So I grew up in that. So for me, I learned to express love that way. And I feel like love languages is something that we learn from our childhood, like how our parents or grandparents or people that we were really close to were expressing love towards us. So then when they did something, that translated to us as that they love us. Somebody uses words of affirmations all the time, speaking like lovely words to one another. Somebody wants to buy gifts, somebody wants to pet someone's cheek or just hug and kiss them. Like, that is affection. And if I knew about love languages in my relationship, I think I would have learned early on that my ex-partner, he wasn't very keen on touch. So I would know how to love him, but I don't know what his love language was. So I felt rejected a lot of times when I was like fully like touchy feely and he wasn't feeling the same way. But that didn't mean that he didn't love me. It was just we expressed love in very different ways.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I think for me, if I were to really delve deep into my love language and look at what's key to my emotional health and what fuels my love tank, I know that words of affirmation work for me.
Mm-hmm.
And which means I thrive on the fact that my partner pays attention and appreciate what makes me special, in the form of giving compliments or words of encouragement, praise, emotional support, something that's important and makes me feel that my partner really cares,
Mm-hmm.
or for example, like a job well done or speaking kind words, and, expressing, efforts and, making me feel secure and wanted. I think, and the other thing for me would be quality time. I love to be able to spend quality time with my partner and doing things and sharing experiences,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it be, theatres, dinners, a stroll in the park, holidays, just creating happy
Mm-hmm.
and memorable moments that we both can look, back on. I think for most part, our love tanks can be fueled by all of these, but we do have primary love languages that we look to. I mean, for someone like me who's been through marriage and obviously now divorce, I can step back and see that our love language was very different. And I can recognize that. And it's as hard as it is to admit, it's good to tap into, my failings so that I don't make the same problems and mistakes
Mm-hmm.
in my next relationship.
I think my love language is a bit of, mine's mostly communication. Communication is a very important thing to me in a relationship. I don't think I'm too much of a touchy-feely person. Maybe I'll give that like 60%, but I think communication's key and quality time, And I think the love languages are important. It's a communication strategy,
Mhm.
basically. It's like about what life is in general. You have to know how to communicate to people. Going back to social media, we think it's communication, but social media is numbing people. People are not talking to each other. They're not feeling. They're not expressing emotion. They're not expressing how they really feel. And that's why I find like on social media, when people do really authentic videos about how they feel or something like that, those videos actually do really well.
Yeah, they're powerful,
Yeah, because people feel like
yes,
I need to listen to that because that's how I feel,
yes.
but people are not expressing that. So everybody on social media or everything doesn't have the perfect life. They may make it seem so, but we know as human beings that life is full of problems and it's how you tackle them
Mhm,
and how you solve them.
mhm,
And the love languages thing is a very, very important thing in your relationship. You need to know what your communication strategy with each other is.
mhm.
Because if communication breaks down, your relationship will break down.
That's right. I think for me, like you said, communication, Amanda, it really is key. And, transparency is the foundation of trust. And just being able to have that freedom to speak for yourself and allowing yourself to share your feelings and emotions and thoughts, and being able to express your needs and wants and dislikes is key. Ladies, any tips that we have as well for our audience?
Well, I have a quote that I found on Jay Shetty's website, well, actually his Instagram, and it's by a person called Vienna Farron. And it says that behind every great relationship are difficult and uncomfortable conversations we rarely get to see. Great relationships don't just fall into our laps. They require people to move through their fears and insecurities and do the hard work to move wounds into healing.
Hmm.
Oh, Sophia, that was such an amazing quote. You've got to send me that quote. I've got to
I
put it
will.
in
I'll
the,
screenshot it for you.
I've got to put it in the notes on the podcast as well. I think, there's a lot of tips I'm going to share with anyone that's listening. And before I share the tips, I'd like to say something. If you're there thinking that, marriage defines you, or that if you're not married, your world is over, it's not, it's just one of those things that happens. And, you can find a partner at any age, because the reason I'm saying this is there's a lot of women, and I'm talking to you, they're women in their 50s, 60s, women in their 30s, 20s, women that feel that they have to get married before the clock. I also want to address that a bit, because if
Mhm.
you're in your 20s, 30s, or even 40s and you feel like you're not finding the perfect partner, freeze your eggs, if you can afford it, because you can still have children if you want to. Because I see so many women so pressurized by the fact that they feel that if they don't get married, they're never going to have children. And you can be a single mother. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just addressing this to women in particular, because I know there's a lot of men out there today that are douchebags as well. And then I'm going to address you. And for you guys that are kind of douches, that are out there that are, I mean, I'm not saying you have to commit to anyone. No one has to commit to anybody they don't want to. But I feel like maybe it's time to look deep in yourself and, just find out what you really want in life, because there's no point becoming 60 years old and then marry a 25-year-old that's going to take all your money anyway. If you think that's true happiness, you just missed the boat. So, that's just a quick address to those people. Now, coming to practical tips, I have 6 practical tips I'm going to quickly talk about. The first one is commit to the present, always commit to whatever you're doing, whether it's your work, your relationship, to that person you're with. It's very important to commit to them right now. They're the ones with you. If you feel like it's not working out, talk to them, communicate with each other. And if it doesn't work out, don't drag it along. Have a conversation. And if you have to, go your separate ways for a certain amount of time and then come back together, do that. But you have to commit to being present. You have to be in the moment of that relationship, not one leg out, one leg on Instagram, not one leg out, one leg on Facebook, You have to be there for them. You have to be able to share in their pain, their joy. You have to be there for guidance, and they have to be there for you as well, to be able to guide you through the life is full of all sorts of downs. And that's what a relationship is about. You must both be willing to bend. You must be willing to bend, meaning it's not going to be a straight road. Sometimes you have to bend to the left, sometimes you have to bend to the right. Nothing is perfect. You might see the rose tinted glasses, or you might see all these beautiful Instagram pictures of the perfect couples with perfect bodies, perfect this. Even they are all photoshopped. So that is not real life. Relationships come with hard work, as Sophia said. And so you have to be able to be willing to bend. Otherwise, it's not a relationship. Number 4, don't let childhood trauma control your life. If you have issues with childhood trauma, see a therapist, see a psychologist, get into spirituality, do whatever it takes to get rid of that. Because let me tell you something about childhood trauma. Childhood trauma will fuck your relationship up. Sorry to use that word. It will, because you will be reliving, you'll be trying to get out of your partner
Mhm.
the feelings you had as a child. So even if your partner is giving you love and she's really caring, you'd be trying to make her angry. If you always had an angry mother, you'd be trying to make her pissed off, because
Mhm.
those are the feelings that make you feel comfortable. So
That's
you'll be
right.
searching for them in
Mhm.
your partner. Now,
Mhm.
that's if you have a good partner. So
Mhm.
you're trying to search for those feelings. Now, if you have a bad partner, which is what some people go for, they go and find that wound mate. They go find that person that's going to even help them feel even worse, just because they want to go back to that familiar feeling of trauma. So if you have childhood trauma, please, please, please do not let that get into your relationship. Seek help, because I've seen a lot of relationships destroyed just by people who have a lot of trauma somewhere in their life. They either get too possessive, they get jealous, or they get physical, or they want their, and it goes for both sexes, by the way, it's not just male or female. So that's it. And the third one is you have to lean in. Always lean into your partner, even when you think it's not working out. Be prepared to lean in, be prepared to hear what they have to say. And you should also be prepared to lean in and be loving. And last but not least is move it forward. Always move it forward. When you
Mhm.
have a new partner, and you're talking, you guys just have like you have goals in your life. You have to know where you want your relationship to be in 6 months, 1 year, 1.5 years, 2 years. I'm not saying it has to end up in marriage in 2 years, but you have to know that there's no use. Women, I'm talking to you out there in particular right now. If you're going out with a guy that's not told you that you're his girlfriend within a year, dump him. Because if you say you're dating a man and you've been having intercourse and sleeping with this guy for 1 year and he's still saying, oh, I'm dating that girl, and you want to be in a good relationship, you want to be in a solid relationship, dump that guy. Because what he is doing is he's only taking space in your life and you are not allowing your perfect partner to come in.
100%.
And I know that happens to a lot of women. That's why I'm talking to us women in particular. They'll be like, oh yeah, I'm just dating him. I'm just dating. If a guy a year, I mean, for me personally, after 3 months, you're gone. Because that's but I know some people say, oh yeah, 3 months is too soon. So I would say maybe after a year, if you're still dating someone and he still calls you just that girl, not his girlfriend, not his fiance, not his future wife, one of those three, then, honey, it's time for you to say goodbye to that guy.
That's right. That's right. 100%, Amanda. Yes.
I just want to touch on what Amanda said on 2 points, actually. One of the last point that you said, just bounce when he's not committing, we're not calling you his girlfriend. I think for women these days, we just get really scared of losing someone and feeling scared that you're going to end up alone. It's better to remove yourself from a situation that is making you unhappy. Find that happiness that you were missing in that relationship. Try to give yourself internally that love that you wanted from that person. Heal the triggers. There was another thing, I actually touched up on it on my Insta story today. And it says every time we are triggered, we retrogress back to the age and state of the event we haven't let go. So what I said to it is like working on yourself is the best thing you can do. Healing the hurts from the past so they no longer trigger you. So if you really start doing the internal work, it's going to hurt. You're going to probably relive the past hurts, but it will slowly heal all of the hurts that you've experienced. And one of the things that were triggering you will not trigger you anymore. And therefore you can be your best self for the partner that's going to come into your life. And if you actively work on yourself and heal all of these wounds from your childhood and the trauma that you've lived throughout your whole life, it doesn't have to be just childhood, whatever trauma you've experienced, if you try to heal that hurt and give yourself that internal love, trust me, your energy will vibrate on the higher level and you will start attracting people that are going to be beneficial for you. And then you're going to recognize what you need to learn from that person just purely because your eyes are going to be open. You're almost going to be like woken. You know what I mean? And it's all about the work that you put in yourself. And then you're going to start meeting people and really recognizing what's good for you. So I now, as a 35-year-old woman, I will not stick around for someone that doesn't want to commit to me, even though it hurts, even though all I want to do is to be with them, but I will disappear from that and I will cut cords and I'm not going to be speaking to that person again because I do not want to share myself, my body, and my energy and all the work that I've done on myself with someone that does not want to commit to me.
That's right, Sophia. It really is all about moving away from people that do not serve you and do not bring any positivity or, anything good into your life. And in saying that, I want to come back to just some little practical tips about even just relationships in itself. And I think that it's important to say, to have realistic expectations of your partner and the relationships. I think, there's sometimes we allow ourselves to think of a person that doesn't really exist. So we must, have some control in ourselves and not to think too outwardly that we forget that this is a person, this is somebody who we need to work with, and we must also allow room for improvements and also for that person to make mistakes. And then I want to say also, you have to try and focus on the positives. Practice gratitude and focus on remembering the blessings in your life and all the good times you shared because I think this allows us to put the harder times into perspective and allow us to remind ourselves what we liked initially and what is good about that relationship and that person, and try not to talk negatively, and also, to be constructive and not to be critical. There's also another point I want to make is also that, I think we've touched up a bit about this before, both of you, is that, have a positive mind, and what you're saying, have a positive mind. And what we are saying here is, when you think about ourselves positively, it's easier to think, positively about others and see the good in them. Another point I'd also like to make is, like, be responsible for your own responses. And this is about learning how to handle conflict. I remember my father once saying to me that even if you don't agree or feel that if you feel that your partner is in the wrong, you don't always have to comment. You don't always have to have something to say. He said sometimes it's necessary to just, not to prove your point, but just, to be able to create peace. It's not necessary that we always have to speak out. It's about just creating the harmony, finding a way that you can come together without, always having to do things through conflict. Sometimes I think, relationships, maybe it could be about, changing your routine, your roles, do something different, maybe change your roles. Maybe somebody might do the cooking, or, somebody might put the children to bed. I mean, just trying to change the dynamics within your relationships. And I think one that's very important is to never stop learning about each other throughout, because, as human beings, we evolve, we change over time. We have different goals and mindsets. We grow and we mature. And with that, our experiences can change, and how we think and how we feel. And the key thing is, another point I want to make is to spend quality time and doing the things that you like to do, try new things, create new memories, hobbies, etc. And like Sophia and Samantha both said, make sure to connect spiritually and find a deeper meaning to the relationship, to this union that you've both come together to form. And that takes me, to our, closing statement. And I just want to thank you, ladies, and let's remind ourselves that within every relationship, that communication is key, and helps us break down barriers and enables us to have clarity of thought, bringing us closer and connected. We know every relationship takes a lot of work and effort. And I think what's interesting about listening to our love languages is that it gives us the potential to really connect and understand what the source of our core emotions are, and in turn makes us tick, as well as that of our partners. When we don't speak each other's love language, we can't recognize when we want to connect with our innermost feelings, wants, and needs. And it's important, or should I say essential, to know what guides and fuels our fire. A successful marriage or relationship is built on a foundation of love, commitment, understanding, and patience that evolves over time. Love takes on different forms, and that form is temporary, and we must evolve or it will come to an end. We all want to believe in a happily ever after fairy tale of love and marriage, but the reality is that a successful relationship is about demonstrating affection. But what we must do is lead from a place of love. Our capacity to tune into an energy of love gives us the words we need when we're ready to speak up, the compassion we need when it's time to forgive, and the power we need when we are lost. Marriage and relationships are never easy, but are very possible. Remember to act efficiently and effectively with purpose and meaning, and remember to be proactive in your quest to finding everlasting love. As without love, as humans, we disconnect from ourselves and also from that of society. Thank you.